along the serpentine ribbon of the Nile, where the desert's relentless embrace yields to life-giving waters. A story of unparalleled human ingenuity and enduring civilization begins to unfold, not with grand monuments, but with the subtle rustle of reeds and the first tentative scratch of a digging stick. Around 6000 BCE, the very contours of human existence along this fertile corridor undergo a profound transformation. Hunter-gatherer bands, once nomadic and beholden to the whims of nature, begin to settle, drawn by the predictable, life-sustaining rhythm of the annual Nile inundation. This is the dawn of agriculture in ancient Egypt, a pivotal shift that lays the bedrock for millennia of unparalleled cultural and political development. In the Fayum Depression, a natural basin west of the Nile, archaeological evidence from sites like Fayum A reveals some of the earliest signs of organized farming. Here, by 5200 BCE, communities are cultivating emmer wheat and barley, grains that will form the staple diet of Egyptians for thousands of years. They are not merely consuming these crops, they are storing them in granaries, circular pits lined with matting, indicating a foresight and a communal effort that transcends immediate survival. The domestication of animals also begins to take hold, with sheep, goats, and cattle becoming integral to their way of life, providing milk, meat, and hides. These early farmers are not just passive recipients of the Nile's bounty. They are active participants in shaping their environment, beginning to understand and harness its power. Further south, in Upper Egypt, the Badarian culture emerges around 4400 BCE, leaving behind tantalizing glimpses into a society of increasing sophistication. Named after the site of El-Badari, these communities are distinguished by their exquisite pottery. Thin-walled, red-polished ware with a distinctive black top, often decorated with ripple patterns. This pottery is not merely functional. It is an art form, demonstrating a mastery of firing techniques and an aesthetic sensibility that hints at a growing cultural complexity. The Badarians also fashion tools from flint, ivory, and bone, and adorn themselves with beads of steatite and carnelian, suggesting an emerging trade network and a nascent sense of personal adornment. Their burials, often in oval pits with the deceased placed in a contracted position, accompanied by grave goods like pottery, tools, and personal ornaments, indicate a belief in an afterlife and a reverence for their dead. This is a society taking its first steps towards ritual and structured belief systems. As the centuries progress, the Badarian culture gives way to the Naqada cultures, a sequence of archaeological phases, Naqada 1, 2, and 3, that span from approximately 4000 BCE to 3100 BCE, and dramatically illustrate the accelerating pace of social and political evolution. Naqada 1, sometimes called the Amratian period, circa 4000 to 3500 BCE, sees the expansion of settlements and a further refinement of material culture. Pottery remains a hallmark, with red-on buff painted vessels depicting geometric patterns, animals, and even early human figures, offering a window into their cosmology and daily life. The use of copper, though still limited, begins to appear for tools and ornaments, signaling an awareness of metallurgy. Small ivory and bone figurines, often depicting women with exaggerated features, suggest fertility cults and an emphasis on life-giving forces. Burials become more elaborate, with larger grave goods and the occasional presence of multiple individuals, perhaps indicating family groupings or social distinctions. The transition to Naqada II, or the Jerseyan period, circa 3500 to 3200 BCE, marks a period of profound transformation and increasing social stratification. The settlements grow in size and complexity, with evidence of planned villages and specialized workshops. Control over resources, particularly fertile land and valuable commodities like copper, gold, and exotic stones, becomes increasingly important. This period sees the development of long-distance trade networks, connecting Egypt with Nubia to the south, the Near East to the northeast, and the Red Sea coast. Lapis lazuli, a blue metamorphic rock from Afghanistan, appears in elite burials, a testament to these burgeoning trade routes and the desire for prestigious foreign goods. The pottery of Naqada II undergoes a stylistic shift, with light-colored vessels decorated in red-brown paint, often depicting boats, animals, and human figures engaged in what appear to be ceremonial activities or warfare. These decorated ware vessels are invaluable sources of information, showing large, multi-oared boats, suggesting organized travel and possibly even military expeditions along the Nile. The appearance of these boats, often adorned with standards or emblems, hints at the emergence of distinct tribal or regional identities. Crucially, Naqada II witnesses the rise of more centralized authority. Larger, richer tombs emerge, particularly at sites like Naqada and Hierakonpolis. Hierakonpolis, or Nekhen as it was known to the Egyptians, becomes a particularly important center, perhaps even a proto-capital. Its extensive cemeteries, including the elaborate Tomb 100, with its painted decorations depicting a procession of boats, animals, and figures engaged in conflict, strongly suggest the presence of a powerful local ruler. These paintings are among the earliest examples of monumental art in Egypt, foreshadowing the grand narratives that will adorn later temple walls. The development of administrative practices also begins during Naqada II. Early forms of writing, in the shape of hieroglyphic signs on pottery and labels, start to appear, primarily for administrative purposes like recording ownership or quantities of goods. This proto-writing is a critical step towards the full-fledged hieroglyphic script that will define ancient Egyptian civilization. The concept of kingship itself is taking shape, with powerful individuals consolidating control over multiple settlements and resources. These nascent rulers likely derive their authority from a combination of military prowess, control over trade, and religious legitimacy, acting as intermediaries between their communities and the divine forces that govern the Nile's inundation. Naqada III, often referred to as Dynasty 0, circa 3200 to 3000 BCE, is the immediate precursor to the early dynastic period and represents the final, decisive stage of unification. During this period, the political landscape of Egypt is characterized by a few dominant polities, vying for control over the entire Nile Valley. The centers of power, particularly in Upper Egypt, continue to grow in influence. Hierakonpolis, Naqada, and Abydos emerge as the most significant, each with its own powerful ruling elite. Tihi material culture of Naqada III reflects this accelerating trend towards state formation. Royal tombs at Abydos, particularly those in the el-Kab necropolis, become increasingly elaborate. These tombs contain a wealth of objects, including large quantities of pottery, stone vessels, and grave goods made from exotic materials, demonstrating the immense resources at the disposal of these proto-kings. The presence of numerous subsidiary burials around the main royal tombs, containing the remains of retainers and servants, suggests the practice of human sacrifice, a chilling testament to the absolute power wielded by these early rulers and a belief in their continued service in the afterlife. One of the most iconic artifacts from this period is the Narmer palette, discovered at Hierakonpolis. This magnificent ceremonial palette, carved from a single piece of siltstone, is a profoundly important historical document, though its interpretation remains a subject of scholarly debate. On one side, Narmer, wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt, is depicted smiting a kneeling enemy, while on the other, he wears the red crown of Lower Egypt, inspecting the decapitated bodies of his foes. The palette clearly celebrates a military victory and the unification of the two lands under a single ruler. The presence of both crowns suggests that Narmer either achieved this unification or was the first king to fully embody the dual sovereignty of Upper and Lower Egypt. The Narmer palette also showcases a fully developed artistic style that will endure for millennia, characterized by a combination of profile and frontal views, a hierarchical scale where the king is depicted larger than others, and a clear narrative purpose. The presence of early hieroglyphic signs, including Narmer's name written within a serek, a rectangular frame representing the palace facade, further underscores its significance as a historical record. Some scholars identify Narmer with Menes, a legendary king mentioned by later Egyptian historians like Manetho as the unifier of Egypt and the founder of the first dynasty. While the exact identity of Menes remains elusive, the archaeological evidence strongly points to Narmer as the pivotal figure in this monumental achievement. The unification of Egypt is not a single event, but rather a culmination of centuries of cultural development, political consolidation, and sporadic warfare. The fertile Nile Valley, once home to disparate agricultural communities, has slowly and inexorably been molded into a cohesive political entity. The shared reliance on the Nile's inundation, the development of common artistic and religious traditions, and the ambition of powerful local rulers all contribute to this eventual synthesis. The process likely involves both military conquest and strategic alliances, as the stronger polities absorb or subjugate their weaker neighbors. The concept of a unified Egypt, with its distinct geographical divisions of Upper, Southern, and Lower, Northern Egypt, becomes deeply ingrained in the Egyptian psyche. The king, as the embodiment of this unity, will forever be known as the Lord of the Two Lands, wearing the double crown that symbolizes his dominion over both. This unification provides the political stability and centralized control necessary for the vast projects that will define ancient Egyptian civilization. The monumental architecture, the elaborate irrigation systems, and the complex bureaucracy. The foundation has been laid for a civilization that will endure for over 3 millennia, a testament to the vision and power of its earliest kings. This section concludes with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under Narmer, or Menes, around 3100 BCE, marking the beginning of the early dynastic period. With the dawn of the early dynastic period, around 3100 BCE, ancient Egypt embarks on an extraordinary journey, forging a unified state under the legendary Narmer, often identified with the mythical Menes. This pivotal era, spanning the First and Second Dynasties, c. 3126–86 BCE, witnesses the solidification of kingship and the creation of the foundational institutions that will govern Egypt for millennia. The capital city, established at Memphis, strategically located at the apex of the Nile Delta, becomes the administrative and religious heart of the burgeoning nation. This new city, known as Enebhej, white walls, commands access to both Upper and Lower Egypt, facilitating control and communication across the vast kingdom. The kings of the First Dynasty, with names like Aha, Jur, Jet, Den, Anjib, Semerkit, and Kat, reside in stately palaces and are buried in elaborate tombs at Abydos, specifically in the el-Kayab necropolis. These royal burials are not merely interments, they are grand statements of power and belief. The tombs, initially simple pits, evolve into multi-chambered structures, often lined with wood and surrounded by subsidiary graves. These smaller graves contain the remains of courtiers, servants, and even animals, interred alongside their pharaoh to serve him in the afterlife. The practice of human sacrifice, though short-lived, underscores the absolute authority of the early kings and the profound belief in their divine status. Material culture from this period reflects a society of increasing complexity and artistic sophistication. Ivory and ebony labels, inscribed with early hieroglyphic signs, record significant events, names, and administrative details. These labels, often attached to grave goods, provide invaluable insights into the chronology and events of the early dynasties. Stone vessels, crafted from a variety of precious materials like schist, porphyry, and alabaster, demonstrate exceptional craftsmanship and an appreciation for aesthetic beauty. Copper tools and weapons become more prevalent, signaling advancements in metallurgy and a growing capacity for resource extraction and processing. The development of writing, a critical innovation, progresses rapidly during the early dynastic period. Hieroglyphic script, initially pictographic, evolves into a more sophisticated system capable of expressing complex ideas and narratives. This script is used not only for administrative records, but also for monumental inscriptions, sealing documents, and religious texts, laying the groundwork for the rich literary tradition of ancient Egypt. The earliest examples of royal annals, such as the Palermo stone, begin to record the reigns of kings, detailing significant events like festivals, military campaigns, and the height of the Nile inundation. These annals are crucial for reconstructing the early history of Egypt and understanding the priorities of its rulers. Religion and kingship are inextricably linked. The pharaoh is not merely a ruler. He is a living god, a manifestation of Horus, the falcon god, and the divine intermediary between humanity and the pantheon. This divine kingship provides the ideological foundation for the unified state, legitimizing the pharaoh's absolute power and his role as the protector of Maat, the cosmic order, truth, and justice. The royal iconography, including the crowns, scepters, and ceremonial attire, reinforces this divine status, projecting an image of unparalleled authority. The first dynasty concludes around 2890 BCE, giving way to the second dynasty. While less is known about the specifics of this period, it appears to be a time of consolidation and internal development. Kings like Hopesakemwi, Rainub, Ninetcher, Peribsen, and Kasekemwi continue to reign from Memphis, maintaining the unified state. There is some evidence of internal strife or regional tensions during the mid-second dynasty, possibly reflecting a struggle between the cults of Horus and Seth, two prominent deities in the Egyptian pantheon. However, by the reign of Kasekemwi, the last king of the second dynasty, stability is firmly re-established. Kasekemwi is a particularly significant figure, known for his military prowess and for commissioning impressive stone monuments. His tomb at Abydos is a massive structure, featuring multiple chambers and an impressive array of grave goods, marking a clear progression in royal mortuary architecture. The transition from the early dynastic period to the Old Kingdom, around 2686 BCE, is not a sudden rupture, but a gradual evolution. The foundations laid by the early kings, the centralized administration, the divine kingship, the sophisticated writing system, and the belief in an elaborate afterlife, coalesce into a highly structured and enduring civilization. The Old Kingdom, often called the Age of the Pyramids, spans dynasties 3 through 6 c. 2680–620–181 BCE, and represents a zenith of ancient Egyptian power, artistry, and intellectual achievement. The Third Dynasty commences with King Djoser c. 2680–626–67 BCE, whose reign marks a monumental leap in architectural innovation. Djoser's vizier, Imhotep, a polymath revered for his genius, conceives and designs the world's first monumental stone building, the Step Pyramid at Saqqara. This revolutionary structure, rising in 6 mastable-like steps to a height of approximately 62 meters, is not merely a tomb. It is an entire mortuary complex, enclosed by a vast perimeter wall and featuring temples, courtyards, and subterranean passages. The Step Pyramid represents a dramatic departure from earlier mud brick tombs, signaling a new era of engineering capability and artistic ambition. Imhotep's mastery of stone construction, his understanding of architectural principles, and his ability to organize a massive workforce are truly groundbreaking. The complex is a tangible manifestation of the pharaoh's immense power and his eternal journey. Following Djoser, kings like Sekhemkhet and Kaaba continue the tradition of pyramid building, though their structures remain unfinished or less well-preserved. The Third Dynasty establishes the template for royal mortuary complexes, integrating the tomb with cult temples and administrative buildings, all designed to ensure the pharaoh's successful transition to the afterlife and his perpetual veneration. The Fourth Dynasty, c. 2613–2494 BCE, is the true golden age of pyramid building, witnessing the construction of the most iconic structures in human history. It begins with King Sneferu c. 2613–2589 BCE, a prolific builder who perfects the true pyramid form. Sneferu commissions three major pyramids: the Meidum Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid, and the Red Pyramid, all located at Dashur and Meidum. The Meidum Pyramid, initially a step pyramid, is later converted into a true pyramid, though its outer casing collapses. The Bent Pyramid, so named for its distinct change in angle halfway up, represents an important learning curve in pyramid engineering. Finally, the Red Pyramid, a true pyramid with smooth sides, stands as a testament to Sneferu's architectural triumph and the culmination of decades of experimentation. These projects require immense resources, meticulous planning, and the coordinated labor of tens of thousands of skilled craftsmen and laborers. Sneferu's reign also sees significant expansion of trade and military campaigns into Nubia and Libya, securing vital resources and asserting Egyptian dominance. Sneferu's son, Khufu c. 2589–2566 BCE, builds the Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest and most famous pyramid ever constructed. Standing at an original height of 146.6 meters, composed of an estimated 2.3 million blocks of stone, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons, the Great Pyramid is an unparalleled feat of engineering and organization. It dominates the Giza Plateau, flanked by three smaller Queen's pyramids and a vast cemetery of mastaba tombs for nobles and officials. The precision of its alignment, the sheer scale of its construction, and the ingenuity of its internal passages continue to astound modern engineers. This monumental undertaking is not built by slaves, as often popularly depicted, but by a highly organized workforce of skilled artisans, laborers, and overseers, housed in purpose-built settlements near the construction site. These workers are provisioned, medically cared for, and likely paid in rations, demonstrating the sophisticated administrative capabilities of the Old Kingdom state. Khufu's successors, Khafre c. 2558–2532 BCE, and Menkaure c. 2532–2503 BCE, continue the tradition at Giza. Khafre builds the second largest pyramid, slightly smaller than Khufu's, and commissions the iconic Great Sphinx, a colossal limestone statue with the body of a lion and the head of a pharaoh, believed to represent Khafre himself. The Sphinx guards the Giza Plateau, embodying the protective power of the pharaoh. Menkaure's pyramid is significantly smaller, perhaps reflecting a shift in resources or royal priorities, but it is notable for its exquisite granite casing and the beautiful statuary found within his mortuary temple. The Giza Plateau, with its three pyramids, the Sphinx, and associated temples and tombs, represents the ultimate expression of Old Kingdom royal power and the enduring belief in the pharaoh's divine journey to the stars. The Fifth Dynasty, c. 2494–2345 BCE, marks a subtle but significant shift in religious emphasis. While pyramid building continues, the scale of these structures generally diminishes. The focus shifts towards the construction of elaborate sun temples, particularly at Abusir, reflecting the growing importance of the sun god Ra in the royal cult. Kings like Userkaf, Sahur, Neferukerkaki, Nusera-Ani, and Yunus build pyramids and mortuary complexes, but their most distinctive monuments are the dedicated sun temples, open-air structures designed for the worship of Ra. These temples feature large obelisks and altars, symbolizing the sun's rays and its life-giving power. The reliefs within the mortuary temples also become more detailed and extensive, depicting scenes of daily life, agricultural activities, and the pharaoh's cosmic journey, providing invaluable insights into Old Kingdom society and beliefs. The reign of Yunus, c. 2375–2345 BCE, the last king of the 5th dynasty, is particularly significant for the introduction of the pyramid texts. These are the earliest known corpus of religious texts in the world, inscribed on the walls of Unaz's burial chamber and subsequent pyramids. The pyramid texts comprise a collection of spells, incantations, and hymns designed to assist the deceased pharaoh in his transition to the afterlife, to ensure his resurrection, and to guarantee his eternal journey among the stars. They represent a profound articulation of Egyptian cosmology and the pharaoh's divine destiny, offering a direct window into the spiritual world of the Old Kingdom elite. The 6th dynasty, c. 2345–181 BCE, continues the traditions of its predecessors, but it also witnesses the gradual erosion of centralized power that will eventually lead to the Old Kingdom's collapse. Kings such as Teti, Pepi I, Mariner Nemtiumsef I, and Pepi II rule for extended periods. Pepi II, in particular, has one of the longest reigns in history, possibly ruling for over 90 years. During this dynasty, the power of the nomarchs, the provincial governors, begins to increase. Their tombs, often located in their home provinces rather than near the royal capital, become more elaborate, reflecting their growing wealth and influence. They gradually accumulate titles and responsibilities that were once the sole prerogative of the central government, such as the administration of justice and the collection of taxes. The central government struggles to maintain control over the vast bureaucracy and the increasingly independent provincial administrations. Economic strains, possibly exacerbated by declining Nile floods and the immense cost of maintaining the royal mortuary cults, begin to take their toll. The practice of granting tax-exempt status to temple estates and officials, intended to ensure their loyalty, paradoxically depletes the royal treasury over time. The long reign of Pepi II, while initially a period of stability, may have contributed to the weakening of royal authority. A very elderly king might have struggled to maintain firm control, allowing regional powers to further consolidate their positions. By the end of the 6th dynasty, around 2181 BCE, the unified state, once so robust, begins to fracture. The power of the pharaoh diminishes, and the nomarchs effectively become hereditary rulers of their provinces, paying only nominal allegiance to the king in Memphis. Communication and administration break down, leading to a period of decentralization and political instability. The grand vision of a single, divinely ruled kingdom, so magnificently expressed in the pyramids and temples of the Old Kingdom, slowly unravels. The section ends with the collapse of the Old Kingdom, marked by the end of the 6th dynasty, and the decentralization of power leading into the first intermediate period around 2181 BCE. The first intermediate period, c. 2180–2055 BCE, following the collapse of the Old Kingdom, saw Egypt descend into a profound era of disunity, spanning dynasties 7 through 10 and parts of dynasty 11. The centralized authority of the pharaoh, once absolute, crumbled, giving way to a mosaic of independent regional rulers, or nomarchs. Memphis, the ancient capital, lost its prominence as the seat of power, and a rapid succession of kings, often with very short reigns, attempted to assert control, but their authority rarely extended beyond their immediate vicinity. Evidence suggests environmental factors, such as sustained low Nile floods, exacerbated the crisis, leading to widespread famine and social unrest. Local rulers, once administrators of the pharaoh, now acted as kings in their own right, raising armies, collecting taxes, and commissioning their own tombs, often in their provincial capitals like Heracleopolis Magna and Thebes. The literary output of this era reflects the chaos and pessimism, with texts like the Admonitions of Ipuwer lamenting the breakdown of order and the reversal of social norms. Despite the turmoil, artistic and intellectual traditions continued to evolve, albeit in a more localized and diverse manner. Two main power centers emerged: the kings of Heracleopolis Magna, dynasties 9 and 10, who claimed to be the legitimate successors to the Old Kingdom pharaohs, and a rising dynasty in Thebes, dynasty 11, far to the south. For over a century, these two factions vied for control, engaging in intermittent warfare and diplomatic maneuvering. The Heracleopolitan kings, such as Khedi I and Merakher, attempted to restore order in the north, but their grip was tenuous. Meanwhile, in Thebes, a powerful family of nomarchs, the Antifs, gradually consolidated power over Upper Egypt. The reunification of Egypt began in earnest with Mentuhotep I, the founder of the Theban 11th dynasty. His successors, Intef I, Intef II, and Intef III, expanded Theban influence, pushing northwards against the Heracleopolitan domain. However, it was Mentuhotep II c. 2060–1210 BCE who finally triumphed, bringing an end to the First Intermediate Period and ushering in the Middle Kingdom. Around 2040 BCE, after decades of conflict, Mentuhotep II defeated the last Heracleopolitan king, likely Merakher, and reunified the two lands under a single crown. His reign marked a profound resurgence of Egyptian civilization, characterized by a renewed sense of national identity and a more introspective, yet resilient, artistic and literary style. Mentuhotep II chose Deir el-Bahari, on the west bank of Thebes, for his elaborate mortuary complex, a unique terrace structure that blended elements of Old Kingdom pyramid design with the Theban rock-cut tomb tradition. His monument embodied the transition and innovation of his reign, a symbol of the reborn state. The Middle Kingdom, c. 2050–51650 BCE, encompassing dynasties 11 and 12, is often considered a classical age of Egyptian culture, particularly in literature and art. The pharaohs of this era, while still divine, were often depicted with a more human, thoughtful, and even burdened expression, reflecting the lessons learned from the chaos of the First Intermediate Period. The capital shifted from Thebes to Ichtoi, near the Fayum oasis, a strategic location that allowed for better control over both Upper and Lower Egypt. Amenemhat IC, 1985–1955 BCE, the founder of the powerful 12th dynasty, was a vizier under the last king of the 11th dynasty, Mentuhotep IV. He seized power, possibly through a coup, and established a new royal line. His reign focused on strengthening central authority, reorganizing the administration, and securing Egypt's borders. He commissioned the Prophecy of Nefertiti, a literary work that legitimized his rule by depicting a seer predicting the collapse of the Old Kingdom and the eventual rise of a savior king, Amenemhat. He also introduced the concept of co-regency, appointing his son, Senusret I, as co-ruler to ensure a smooth succession. This practice became a hallmark of the 12th dynasty, providing remarkable stability. Senusret IC, 1960–1920 BCE, continued his father's policies, expanding Egyptian influence into Nubia, building fortifications, and exploiting the region's gold mines. He constructed the White Chapel at Karnak, a masterpiece of Middle Kingdom relief sculpture, and his pyramid at Lisht, though smaller than Old Kingdom counterparts, demonstrated a renewed commitment to monumental building. His reign was a period of great prosperity and artistic flourishing. Amenemhat IIC, 1920 to 1878 BCA, further consolidated Egyptian control over Nubia and expanded trade relations with the Near East, the Aegean and Punt. His reign is well documented through records of expeditions and diplomatic exchanges, highlighting Egypt's growing international presence. Senusret IIC, 1878–1874 BCE, focused on internal development, particularly the ambitious irrigation projects in the Fayum Oasis, transforming this fertile region into a major agricultural center. His pyramid at Lahun was notable for its innovative construction techniques and the rich burial goods discovered within its associated tombs. Senusret IIC, 1870–1855 BCE, is perhaps the most powerful and iconic ruler of the 12th dynasty. He was a formidable military leader, leading multiple campaigns into Nubia to crush rebellions and establish a permanent southern frontier. He constructed a series of massive mud brick fortresses along the Nile, south of the Second Cataract, to secure trade routes and resource exploitation. His campaigns extended into the Levant, demonstrating Egypt's renewed military might. Senusret III was depicted in statuary with a stern, realistic face, conveying a sense of strength, wisdom, and burden, a departure from the idealized images of earlier pharaohs. He undertook administrative reforms, diminishing the power of the nomarchs and strengthening the central bureaucracy, effectively creating a more meritocratic system. Amenemhat IIC, 1855–1808 BCE, enjoyed a long and prosperous reign, often considered the zenith of the Middle Kingdom. He continued the Fayum irrigation projects, creating a vast agricultural heartland. His two pyramids at Dashur and Hawara were impressive structures, though built primarily of mud brick with limestone casings. The Hawara pyramid was particularly famous for its elaborate mortuary temple, which ancient Greek writers called the labyrinth, a testament to its complexity and scale. Amenemhat III's reign saw a flourishing of art and craftsmanship, with exquisite jewelry and statuary produced for the royal court and elite. The late 12th dynasty, under Amenemhat IV c. 1808–1799 BCA, and Queen Sopneferu c. 1790–1795 BCE, saw a gradual decline in royal authority and stability. Sopneferu was the first confirmed female pharaoh of Egypt, ruling independently after her brother's death. Her short reign marked the end of the powerful 12th dynasty, which had brought over 2 centuries of prosperity and stability. The Second Intermediate Period, c. 1795–1550 BCE, followed, a complex era of political fragmentation and foreign domination. The 13th dynasty, c. 1795–1650 BCE, attempted to maintain the traditions of the Middle Kingdom, but its kings were often weak and short-lived, ruling from Ichtoi. Their authority gradually waned, and independent local rulers emerged throughout Egypt. Concurrently, a new power arose in the eastern delta, the Hyksos. These rulers of foreign lands, as the Egyptians called them, were a mix of Semitic peoples from the Near East, who migrated into Egypt, initially settling peacefully. They gradually consolidated power, establishing their capital at Avaris, modern Tel el-Daba, and eventually forming the 15th dynasty, c. 1650–1550 BCA. The Hyksos introduced new technologies, including the composite bow, horse-drawn chariots, and improved bronze metallurgy, which would later be adopted by the Egyptians. While the Hyksos controlled Lower and Middle Egypt, a native Egyptian dynasty, the 17th dynasty, c. 1650–1550 BCA, maintained an independent kingdom in Thebes, ruling Upper Egypt. They paid tribute to the Hyksos, but gradually built up their military strength, preparing for a war of liberation. Kings like Seqenenre-Tao, Kamose, and Ahmose were instrumental in this struggle. Seqenenre-Tao confronted the Hyksos and died in battle, his mummy bearing gruesome wounds consistent with Hyksos weaponry. His son, Kamose, continued the fight, launching daring campaigns against Avaris and documenting his victories on Stele. The final expulsion of the Hyksos and the reunification of Egypt was achieved by Ahmose I.C. 1550–1525 BCA, Kamose's brother. Ahmose besieged Avaris, finally capturing it and driving the Hyksos out of Egypt. He pursued them into southern Canaan, securing Egypt's borders and avenging the humiliation of foreign rule. Ahmose I's triumph marked the beginning of the New Kingdom, c. 1550–1070 BCA, Egypt's most powerful and imperialistic era, encompassing dynasties 18 through 20. The New Kingdom was an age of empire, unprecedented wealth, and monumental building, driven by a new, aggressive foreign policy. The Pharaohs, now styled King of Upper and Lower Egypt and Son of Ra, projected an image of military might and divine favor. The capital remained Thebes, with its magnificent temples of Karnak and Luxor becoming the spiritual and political heart of the empire. Ahmose I established the foundations of the New Kingdom, reorganizing the army, re-establishing trade routes, and initiating a vast building program. He restored the temples damaged during the Hyksos occupation and began the construction of grand mortuary complexes in the Valley of the Kings. Amenhotep IC, 1525–1504 BCE, continued to consolidate power, campaigning in Nubia and expanding the cult of Amun, the patron god of Thebes, who rose to become the preeminent deity of Egypt. His reign was a period of relative peace and prosperity. Thutmose IC, 1504–1492 BCE, was a formidable warrior king, leading the Egyptian army deep into Nubia, reaching the Fourth Cataract and establishing permanent garrisons. He also campaigned extensively in the Near East, reaching the Euphrates River, marking Egypt's farthest territorial extent to date. He was the first pharaoh known to be buried in the Valley of the Kings, a secluded necropolis designed to protect royal tombs from desecration. Thutmose IIC, 1490–1479 BCE, had a relatively short reign, marked by minor military campaigns and continued building projects. Hatshepsut c. 1479–1458 BCE, Thutmose II's half-sister and wife, initially ruled as regent for her young stepson, Thutmose III. However, she soon asserted her full pharaonic authority, adopting male regalia and titles. Her reign was one of remarkable stability, prosperity, and artistic innovation. She focused on internal development and trade, most famously dispatching a major expedition to the land of Punt, bringing back exotic goods like myrrh trees, frankincense, gold, and animals. Her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari was a breathtaking architectural marvel, a series of terraced colonnades carved into the cliffs, adorned with exquisite reliefs depicting her divine birth and the Punt expedition. Hatshepsut's reign challenged traditional gender roles and demonstrated the capacity of a female ruler to govern a powerful empire. Thutmose IIC, 1479–1425 BCE, after Hatshepsut's death, emerged as one of Egypt's greatest warrior pharaohs, often called the Napoleon of Egypt. He led no fewer than 17 military campaigns into the Near East, crushing rebellions by the princes of Canaan and Syria, and establishing Egypt's imperial dominance. His most famous victory was the Battle of Megiddo, c. 1457 BCE, a brilliant strategic triumph that secured Egyptian control over the Levant. He brought vast quantities of tribute and prisoners back to Egypt, enriching the treasury and fueling monumental building projects. He erected numerous obelisks and added extensively to the Karnak temple complex, dedicating his conquests to Amun-Ra. Thutmose III also conducted a systematic campaign to erase Hatshepsut's name and images from monuments, likely to legitimize his own rule and prevent future claims to the throne by women. Amenhotep IIc, 1427–1400 BCE, continued his father's military traditions, campaigning in Syria and consolidating Egyptian control. He was renowned for his athletic prowess and was depicted as a powerful, capable ruler. Thutmose IV c. 1413–90 BCE focused on diplomatic relations, particularly with the Mitanni Kingdom, a powerful rival in the Near East. He sealed an alliance through a royal marriage, ushering in a period of relative peace in the region. He also restored the Great Sphinx at Giza, commemorating his actions on the Dream Stela. Amenhotep IIc, 1390–1352 BCE, presided over a period of unparalleled wealth, luxury, and artistic brilliance, often considered the height of New Kingdom power. His reign was characterized by diplomatic marriages, lavish building projects, and a focus on the cult of the king as a living god. He built the magnificent Luxor Temple, dedicated to the rejuvenation of kingship, and his vast mortuary temple on the west bank of Thebes, now largely vanished except for the colossal statues of himself, known as the Colossi of Memnon. His palace at Malkata was an immense complex, reflecting the opulence of his court. Amenhotep III's diplomatic correspondence, known as the Amarna Letters, provides invaluable insights into the complex political landscape of the ancient Near East. Amenhotep IV, later Akhenaten c. 1350–1336 BCA, initiated the most radical religious and political upheaval in Egyptian history. Early in his reign, he began to promote the Aten, the sun disk, as the supreme and eventually sole deity, suppressing the traditional cults, particularly that of Amun. He changed his name to Akhenaten, effective for the At, and moved the capital from Thebes to a newly constructed city, Akhetaten, horizon of the At, modern Amarna. This move was a direct challenge to the powerful priesthood of Amun and the established religious order. The art of the Amarna period was revolutionary, characterized by a naturalistic and expressive style, often depicting the royal family in intimate, informal settings. Akhenaten's religious reforms were effectively a monotheistic revolution, although some scholars describe it as monolatry, the worship of one god without denying the existence of others. His focus on internal religious reform led to a neglect of foreign policy, causing a decline in Egyptian influence in the Near East. Smenkhare c. 1338–1336 BCE, whose identity and relationship to Akhenaten remain debated, briefly reigned, possibly as co-regent. He may have attempted to reconcile with the Amun priesthood. Tutankhamun c. 1336–1327 BCE, Akhenaten's probable son or stepson, ascended the throne as a young boy. Under the guidance of his powerful advisors, Ai and Horemheb, he reversed Akhenaten's religious reforms, restoring the cult of Amun and abandoning Akhetaten. His name, originally Tutankhate, was changed to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. Though his reign was short and relatively insignificant politically, his nearly intact tomb, discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, provided an unparalleled glimpse into the wealth and artistry of the New Kingdom. The treasures within his tomb, including his iconic golden burial mask, are among the most famous artifacts from ancient Egypt. IC 1327–1323 BCE. A powerful vizier and advisor during Tutankhamun's reign, succeeded him as pharaoh. His brief rule focused on solidifying the return to traditional religious practices. Hormuzd c. 1323–1295 BCE. A general who served under Tutankhamun and I eventually seized the throne, marking the end of the 18th dynasty. He systematically erased the names of Akhenaten, Smenkhkare, Tutankhamun, and I from monuments, presenting himself as the legitimate successor to Amenhotep III and restoring order after the Amarna period. His reforms aimed at strengthening the army and the administration, laying the groundwork for the powerful 19th dynasty. The 19th dynasty, c. 1295–1186 BCE, began with Ramesses IC. 1295–1290 for BCE, Hormuzd's vizier and a military man. His reign was short, but he established a new royal line that would produce some of Egypt's most iconic pharaohs. Seti IC. 1294–1279 BCE, was a formidable warrior and builder. He reconquered territories in the Levant lost during the Amarna period, fought against the Hittite Empire, and commissioned magnificent temples, most notably his mortuary temple at Abydos, with its exquisite reliefs, and the hypostyle hall at Karnak. His tomb in the Valley of the Kings is one of the largest and most beautifully decorated. Ramesses IIC. 1279–1213 BCE, known as Ramesses the Great, was arguably the most powerful and celebrated pharaoh of the New Kingdom. He reigned for an astonishing 66 years and left an indelible mark on Egypt. His reign was characterized by extensive building projects, including the rock-cut temples of Abu Simbel, his mortuary temple the Ramesseum, and massive additions to Luxor and Karnak. He also founded a new capital, Pi-Ramesses, in the eastern delta. Ramesses II confronted the Hittite Empire at the Battle of Kadesh, c. 1274 BCE, one of the largest chariot battles in history. Although both sides claimed victory, the battle eventually led to the world's first known peace treaty, signed between Ramesses II and the Hittite king Hattusili III. Ramesses II's reign was a period of immense prosperity and artistic output, cementing Egypt's status as a major power. Merampta c. 1213–1203 BCE, Ramesses II's 13th son, succeeded his long-lived father. His reign was marked by significant military challenges, particularly the invasion of the Sea Peoples and a confederation of Libyan tribes. Merampta successfully repelled these invaders, as recorded on his famous Israel stele, which contains the earliest known mention of Israel in any ancient text. The late 19th dynasty and the 20th dynasty, c. 1180–1670 BCE, saw a gradual decline in Egypt's imperial power. The Sea Peoples continued to pose a threat, disrupting trade routes and weakening the empire. Ramesses IIC. 1186–1155 BCE, the last great warrior pharaoh, successfully defended Egypt against a major invasion by the Sea Peoples and Libyans, as vividly depicted in the reliefs at his mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. However, these wars were costly, draining Egypt's resources. His reign also saw increasing internal strife, including the first recorded workers' strike in history at Deir el-Medina and a harem conspiracy that led to his assassination. Following Ramesses III, a series of weak kings, all named Ramesses, Ramesses IV to XI, ruled during a period of declining central authority, economic hardship, and rampant tomb robbing. The power of the high priests of Amun in Thebes grew, effectively creating a dual power structure in the country. Egypt's influence in the Near East waned, and it gradually lost control over its foreign territories. The new kingdom officially ended with the death of Ramesses XI c. 1070 BCE, ushering in the Third Intermediate Period, c. 1076–64 BCE. This era was characterized by political fragmentation, with a succession of foreign rulers, Libyans, Nubians, controlling parts of Egypt. The high priests of Amun effectively ruled Upper Egypt from Thebes, while various Libyan dynasties controlled Lower Egypt from cities like Tanis. The Nubian 25th dynasty, c. 747–656 BCE, originating from the Kingdom of Kush to Egypt's south, reunified Egypt for a time, ruling both Egypt and Nubia. Kings like Pe, Shabaka, Taharka, and Tanutamun revived many old kingdom traditions and restored temples. However, their rule brought Egypt into direct conflict with the rising power of Assyria. The Assyrian invasions began in the mid-7th century BCE, leading to the sacking of Thebes and the eventual expulsion of the Nubian pharaohs. This marked the end of native Egyptian rule for centuries. The late period, c. 664–332 BCE, saw a brief resurgence under the 26th dynasty, Sate dynasty, which, with Assyrian support, expelled the Nubians and reunified Egypt. Pharaohs like Psamtik I and Necho II fostered a period of cultural revival, emulating Old Kingdom styles and re-establishing trade. However, Egypt soon fell under the domination of other foreign powers. The Persians conquered Egypt in 525 BCE, establishing the 27th dynasty and ruling as pharaohs. Egypt became a satrapy of the vast Persian Empire. Despite periods of rebellion and brief independence, Persian rule lasted for over a century. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great conquered Egypt from the Persians, marking a pivotal moment. Upon his death, his generals divided his empire, and Ptolemy Isoter established the Ptolemaic dynasty, 305–30 BCE, in Egypt. This Greek-speaking dynasty ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries, blending Egyptian and Hellenistic cultures. Alexandria, founded by Alexander, became a vibrant center of learning and trade. The Ptolemies adopted Egyptian royal titles and cults, building temples in the Egyptian style, such as the Temple of Edfu and Dendera, while also promoting Greek culture. The most famous Ptolemaic ruler was Cleopatra VII c. 69–30 BCE, the last pharaoh of Egypt. A brilliant and ambitious queen, she famously allied herself with Roman leaders Julius Caesar and Mark Antony to preserve Egypt's independence. However, her defeat alongside Mark Antony at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE by Octavian, later Emperor Augustus, sealed Egypt's fate. With Cleopatra's suicide in 30 BCE, Egypt became a Roman province, marking the definitive end of its independence and the pharaonic era that had endured for over 3 millennia. The legacy of ancient Egypt is immense and enduring. Its monumental architecture, from the pyramids to the temples of Karnak and Luxor, continues to inspire awe. Its sophisticated religious beliefs, including the concept of an afterlife and mummification, profoundly influenced later cultures. Its advancements in mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and writing, hieroglyphs, laid foundations for Western civilization. The art and literature of ancient Egypt offer a profound window into human creativity and the complexities of human experience. Even in its decline, Egypt's cultural influence persisted, shaping the Roman and Byzantine periods, and later through the rediscovery of its wonders, sparking the fields of Egyptology and inspiring countless artists, writers, and thinkers. Ancient Egypt, though no longer a political power, lives on as a testament to humanity's capacity for innovation, faith, and the creation of